Everyone knows Arjuna was a bit of a stud. He was popular with the ladies, he was strong, handsome, and invincible. He's known to have had 4 wives: Draupadi, Subhadra, Ulubi, and Chitrangata. And it is interesting that he married the 3 besides Draupadi in the year of exile for violating his pact with his brothers on Draupadi. As per the agreement, Arjuna was supposed to remain celibate during the exile as sort of a punishment, but instead he married thrice. Draupadi was not happy about that, but that's another story. Anyway, today's episode deals with Chitrangata and Ulubi, and a peculiar episode relating to the two. Ulubi was a Naga princess belonging to a clan of serpents who held mystical powers. Contrary to Chitrangada's fighting skills, Ulubi had mystical abilities. She was the daughter of the serpent king Kauravyan. They were said to have lived in the Naga kingdom in the depths of the ocean. During his celibate exile, Arjuna was drinking water from a river when Ulubi first saw him. She was completely love-struck at his ripping muscles and figure and snatched Arjuna from under the water and dragged him to her kingdom at the bottom of the ocean. As you would have expected, since he was being dragged away by a beautiful serpent princess, Arjuna did not put up much of a fight. "Oh no, somebody help me. This gorgeous woman is kidnapping me." At the bottom of the ocean, she introduces Arjuna to her father, the Naga king Kauravyan, and asks him to marry her. Arjuna declines and says, "I'm sorry, beautiful lady. I'm married. And more than that, I'm in a period of celibate exile." He tells her his story of how he must live in a year of celibacy as punishment for intruding upon his brother and his wife, Draupadi. So Ulubi says, "Now I'm not an expert at contract law, but sounds like your celibacy is only attached to Draupadi and no one else." Arjuna replies, "Beautiful lady, you have a point. I'm convinced. Let's get married." After they spend a bit of time together, Arjuna heads on his not-so-celibate exile. Ulubi did not come back with Arjuna to Hastinapur after the exile. Moving on, Chitrangata was the daughter of the Manipuri king Chitravahana. Chitravahana, much like his ancestors, had only one child, and so he raised her like a son. She was a very skilled warrior. She is said to have been so beautiful that Arjuna went gaga at first sight. But her father, Chitravahanan, warned Arjuna that he will only allow him to marry his daughter if she and the child remains in Manipur. So Arjuna thought, "You mean after I marry her and have a kid with her, I will have no responsibility whatsoever with her and my son, and I have to go back to my home alone? Gee, that's a tough one. Let me think. Okay." Chitrangata conceived a child called Babruvahanan with Arjuna during that exile. And upon the condition placed by her father, Chitrangata and Babruvahanan remained in Manipur and never lived with Arjuna. Remember his name, Babruvahanan. Right. So the story we are going to talk about happens many years after the Kurukshetra war. Yudhishthira is king, and everyone was not living happily ever after. And Yudhishthira decides to have an Ashwamedha sacrifice. The Ashwamedha Yagam was happening, and the horse was set loose through the lands to establish Yudhishthira's power as emperor. You see, the way an Ashwamedha Yagam works is the king releases a white horse, which is supposed to be perfect by all characteristics, into the neighboring lands, followed by his army. As it runs through kingdom after kingdom, the kings of those kingdoms have a choice. Either pay tribute to the army behind the horse, accepting the king as emperor, or capture the horse and fight the army behind it. Arjuna was tasked as the general to the army behind the horse. The horse roamed freely through most of the lands without opposition, until it arrived in the kingdom of Manipur. Manipur was now ruled by Babruvahan, Arjunan's son from Chitrangata. Babruvahanan happily welcomes his dad and his army and decides to pay tribute. But enter Uluvi, the serpent princess. He knew her to be his stepmother. She whispers into his ears that, "Are you a man? You think your father would be proud of you if he did this? Your father vanquished the gods in battle. You want to make him proud? Fight him. Don't be so worthless." I know what you're thinking. She's such a horrible person. Talk about stepmom rivalry, but isn't this getting a little extreme? Getting your own husband and his son to fight? What a snake! Sorry. As with all men in the Kuru family, there was no shortage of testosterone in Babruvahanan either. Enraged, he decides to battle Arjuna. Pleased, Arjunan fights him with all his might. You must remember, Arjunan is old now. This is happening many years after the Kurukshetra war. Arjunan's grandson, Parikshit, will soon be crowned king. That's how old he is. Yet, the old veteran battles it out. Proud and elated to see the martial skills of his son, he enjoyed himself until it started to get ugly. Babruvahanan proved to be just as skilled as his father. Arjunan fights with all his might until he is mortally wounded. He falls, and at that very instant, Babruvahanan falls by exhaustion too. Arjunan dies. Ironic, isn't it? The great warrior who defeated the gods and demons was finally killed by his own son. But then, things are not always what they seem to be. Stay tuned for the next episode to find out what happened next.